Hey everyone, so I'm going to be taking a level map that another student did and exporting it out so that we can start blocking out. Pulling my example up real quick. Let's not use that one. Good enough. Okay, I don't have the original one right now. It's the copy, I guess. I should. Hold on one sec. I have a copy. Alrighty, so here we go. This is a map done by someone named Patrick Evelyn, and they have a bunch of stuff. They've got images, they've got notes. There's a lot of things on here. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my drive and then start working on it to modify it. So I'm going to go to File, make a copy, and then this is going to go to my drive. So let's say LVD map. Here we go. So here's the map with all the info on it. You can save the info if you need to. I like to remove what's unnecessary for me to block out with and clear this up a little bit. So I'm going to pull out the scraps and the notes and things like that and just get these out of here. The icons, I know what the icons mean, so you can save your other map as a reference, but I'm going to use this for now. All these like images and stuff, I'll leave those on there. So like while I'm blocking things out, if I want to know if I'm looking close enough to the reference that it's there for me. So this image right now is not a square, and whenever you're using the map projector, it would rather you use something that is the same height and width. So like 16 by 16, 24, or like a messed up my thing. 64 by 64, 128 by 128. Very, very similar to the old generations of consoles and their bits. 256 by 256. Start diving into the PlayStation 2s and 3s. Anyways, so I need to make sure that this image is a square. So I'm going to copy all this stuff out. And the reason why I have to make it a square is otherwise the projector is going to stretch your map to fit a square area. So I want to make sure this is a square. So I have this all selected. I'm going to go to Edit and then Cut. And then I'm going to go to File, Page Setup. So in Page Setup, you can see that it is definitely not a square. It's a couple random decimal numbers and some larger numbers. So I'm going to change this to whatever the bigger number is. I'm going to make sure that the bigger number is what I have in both. So I'm going to say 42 and 42. So it is an exact square that I'm using. Hit OK. I now have a square canvas. Edit, paste. There you go. So there's the original map, but paste down onto a square image. And right now, the background is transparency. I don't want to use transparency when I project it down because it causes some weird image-like issues. I'm going to go ahead and make a like a square background and just put this behind everything. Then right-click on it, order, send to back. So it puts it all the way at the back. I don't really want it to project blue everywhere, so I'm going to change it to like a gray. So like the background is like a gray. And that'll work fine for me. So this is my map all set up and ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and save this out. File, download as, and I'm going to do PNG. Because PNG is a format that is commonly used for textures. So that's converting it and then downloading it. It's popped up at the bottom of my my Google Chrome. So that's in my downloads. I've got the project still loaded from the video I was doing last time. So I'm now going to import this map that I've downloaded into the project. And it's in my downloads. So if I look in my downloads, it's right there. So I can drag the map, that file, just directly into the project. And then let go, and it imports. Okay, so for my projector, The map projector has a map material on it. That map material, if I pop this open, has the first texture is called cookie. You can drag your map into that slot, and it projects your map down onto the floor. Okay. So the map that is projecting down onto the floor is not aligned properly. As you can see, the ending point is over here, and the starting point is all the way over here. So I need to make sure my starting point aligns with the hub scene, so when the player walks out of the hub, they are immediately at my starting position, or as close as I can get to it. So down here is the front of the hub scene, where the player would walk out through the mountain. So I'm going to move the projector so that that is where that is. I'm going to rotate this, holding control to snap the rotational stuff to degrees. So now it's at 90 degrees. Position this little gateway in front, and then you can think about it and be like, how do I want my level to work? As soon as I walk out of this area, do I want to be at that fence, or do I want to give them a small path or something to get there? Let's go with small path. So that'll be, as I walk out, that's right there, and then you can continue on. So this is only showing because I'm projecting on this floor. When this floor is gone, there's nothing to project on, so it goes away. Once I'm done projecting, you can get rid of that floor if you don't want it. I'm going to have terrain where the level is to project down onto, as well as to build around on. So I'm going to have that as kind of like what I'm going to base things on. So the projector is projecting down. You can then go down to where this stuff is, and then all of your map should be the correct scale. To check that, the player size is the player size. So if I move this over to this icon, you're going to see that the player size is not the player size. It's definitely much bigger than what I should have. So I'm going to take the map projector and change its orthographic size to be smaller. Instead of just randomly typing in numbers, though, I'm going to put my cursor over orthographic size. Click and hold down the left mouse button and then slowly drag to then shrink it to what I need it to be. Now it's moving away from me because it's shrinking it towards the center. So if you want to move this back, you can either look up and grab this and try to move it, or the same thing I just did for orthographic size, I can put my cursor over like Z and drag it. And then X to drag it back over. So it's still not there. We can tweak it back down some. Like, how much closer am I? It fits in about a 4 square thing, so as long as I'm close to that, that's about where I want to be. So there's my player size, much closer to that. I can keep tweaking if I want to, but for demonstration purposes, that's changing the size. Now I just want to show you guys something. The map stops projecting at the edge of this volume, this frustum. So if you put things outside of that frustum, although it looks like it's projecting again back here, that's because there's no fall off texture to cut that off. So you see it again, but it's not actually there. Everything needs to be within this volume, though, to actually be projected down on. So if you put things outside of there, it's not going to show up. Cool. So there's that. I can now go in here and let's put down something. So I'm going to move this over to here. That's our size still. I'm going to set student as active. And then we've got just like this floor and this fence. So I'm just going to very quickly block out a fence. So level blocking meshes, cube. This cube popped into this scene because I had it as active. Drag it to the end over here. It's like, obviously it's a little bigger than what we see, so we can shrink this down to be more fence sized. And you can see the projections right on top of it, so there's no weird guessing or anything. It's just like there's that right on top of that. Hold control, move this out, and we've got a line for the fence. Duplicate that, hold control, move it over to here. There's the other fence. Now we've got two pieces put down. Okay? So as you're building things, you can always go and test them to see if it's correct. I'm going to very quickly drag this down. There we go. So make that a little closer. I've modified those independently, so now it messed up one of the other ones. But with the level blocking meshes, as long as I refresh their meshes, they'll go back to normal. Which we did cover in the tools overview stuff. Holding V to snap to corner. So there's fences. If I select all these fences I just made, level blocking meshes, refresh, that'll fix all of them so they're all brand new objects and they're not linked together. If I set hub as active and then hit play, we can now walk into this area and see the player size, the fences that I just set up, and then actually get a look at it. So like this doesn't really help because I can't match my my map up to it. But if I go to escape and click projection, now my map projects down on top of it, and I can actually see what this is going to look like before I even have anything built out. It's going to be like, this is the size of stairs. You know, my chair's a little big. Got boxes and stuff. So you get an idea of what the map's going to look like, and then you can continue to construct it as you go. Okay, so before I get too far with the floor that I have here, I'm going to actually create a terrain that fits the area that I want it to be in. Very important that you resize your terrain to match your level size. Don't go way too big. Don't go way too small. Unless all you have is a small terrain, I guess. So student scene is active. I'm going to go to game object, 3D object, terrain. Terrain's created and it's at default size. So it stretches out real far. I can move it and you'll see it's moving the entire piece. It moves it from the bottom left corner because that's its pivot point, and the terrain is generated through a script. It's not like an actual object that is like in Unity. The mesh is being generated. So that's why we can modify everything on the fly, similar to how the level blocking meshes work. So I'm going to move this to kind of fit the corner, and then down here where the hub scene is, and then we're going to change the size. So on the terrain, if you go to the gear, the big gear on the terrain, and then scroll down, you've got width, length, and height. So if I change this and go like 200, 200, and 200, there you go. So I've changed the size of it. It's smaller. I want to keep it a square, otherwise it's going to have some other weird like display issues. Squares are always good. Let's go to like 180. I think it's a little smaller. So because I changed the size, I need to change the detail resolution so that I don't have way too much detail on my map. So I'm going to change actually this 513 for the height map. I'm going to go, what was this before? We had like 500 something. So let's just go like 128. And here I'm going to go 256 or something like that. So move it to 129, but it's a little bit smaller. I'm going to work from there. So my terrain now fits exactly where my floor is. So if I wanted to turn this floor off, no more floor, just terrain, right? This terrain matches up to the hub scene, and I can build out from there. Okay, so now that that's there, this terrain has hills, but also you might want terrain that goes underground. If you want to dig into your terrain, by default it doesn't let you dig in. But what's the difference between setting it higher already and then going down versus digging in? So if I go to paint height, or set height, sorry, there's something right down here in the settings that says height and then flatten. So if I want to default my terrain to, let's say, 20 units higher, like let's say 0 is sea level and then 20 is ground level. So I'm going to flatten my terrain up to 20, which pops the entire thing up. And then I'm going to go to its position and say -20. Now I can go down into my terrain, down 20 units. So anywhere that I have, like, let's say these aren't hills, but they're pits instead. then I can dig into it if I want to. We can do one or the other. So if right now I'm on paint height, if I switch this like a more solid brush, change the brush size to be smaller, and let's say the height that I'm going to paint it to is 0, I can now dig into this and it goes down to the bottom rather than going up. Smooth it out so it doesn't look like a huge pit. Notice that it changed this side. So if I screw something up, if I'm in paint height, I can actually sample the height by putting my cursor over what I want to sample, hold shift and click on it, and then you can paint back over and fix whatever went down. It's kind of hard to see because I don't have any textures, so let's drop a texture on this, shall we? If I go to paint, texture, edit textures, and add one, I'm going to select, there's 2 Utiligrid things in here, which looks like the level blocking mesh's default texture. I'm going to select the inverted one first. This is going to be my default material that I'm going to use. So size, I'm going to set to 1 and 1 so that it matches the grid that's in Unity. Hit add, and now we have a grid that I can see, although it's a little dark. I'm then going to add in here one more texture, Utiligrid, the regular one, say 1 and 1. And then this one's going to be wherever I want the player to walk. So like this has like a path over here. I'm going to go ahead and paint a path out into my area where this is going to start. Okay. So there's that. If you wanted to look a little more grainy or something, go back in and be like, this is stairs. I don't need this to be walkable, and it'll have a difference in it. Maybe it makes the internal artist happy that you changed it. So there's that part. There's my ditch. So let's make this one higher. I'm going to set hub as active so we can see this a little better. So we've got a hill, or we've got a ditch hill thing. I'm going to make that, let's say, I'm going to hold shift to select one of these layers down here, and then we'll flatten this out. There we go. So it's like more of like the bottom of a lake. I can hold shift and click on like a layer higher and then be like, no, this one's actually a different height, and kind of just terraform everything. We went too far down, so we can pull this back up. That's how quickly you should be able to go in here and modify stuff. If the projector's ever in your way, you can just turn the object off and then look at what this looks like without it. And then you can pop in here and be like, well, this is walkable, so let's, or traversable, or guess. So let's put this path here and be like, this I want the player to be able to wander around on for the heck of it. And it helps kind of break up what you see visually. There you go. There we go. We got a couple differences here. If you ever want to make a slope or like, something you can like walk down on, what I would do is I would first sample the height that you want to start at. So hold shift, click. It's about 15. So I'm going to set this to 16. And I'm going to set this as a harder brush. This is going to be 16 right here. And then we'll go 17, go up a little bit. Okay, 18. Go to 18, and you're just creating these kind of steps. 19, make another step. There you go. And 20 was our top, so as long as we start there, I can go into smooth then and just smooth this out and make like a path that can be traveled down. We'll paint this in here so we have the path visible. Cool. And now we have a path we can run down as the player. All right, so that's terrain. You can put water in, you can put grass in, any of the other terrain stuff that you can do. You can look at the island experiment for an idea, such as painting grass, trees, etc. But for now, let's finish up with the simple block out stuff. So I've got these walls up. These walls should be set as the correct material. So I'm going to select these. Because they all have the same components, you can just go to the mesh renderer on here, and then you can change this to one that you want. So we have materials for We have materials in the tools folder, so if you do LVD, you can find dynamic, static, structure. I'm going to do structure white for that. And now they have the scraps name on it. And now let's do, I'm going to do the floor here, the stairs, and then like one of the chairs. And then I'm going to stop working because it's not that I'm going to block out the entire level. I just wanted to show you the idea of using this projector while working. Also, real quick, my level should not exist out into a nothingness of pit. I don't want to see the edge of the world unless I'm creating a visible beach, and then I should be able to walk only as far out as I want the player to walk. So I'm going to go ahead and create a mountain range on the side here. Let's find a height that's about the same as the one for the hub here. So I'm going to just kind of paint this up and be like, how high is that? This is about this high. Go back over to paint height, shift, select, stop that there. Okay. There, now it's at that height. And then you can just kind of paint this around and be like, my level doesn't go here. So fill that out. Fill this side out. And like the map definitely didn't have that before, but I'm adding it. Making sure not to modify the hub scene, just to kind of pair mine up with it so it looks like it matches. And there's like the little area to walk out and check things out. We'll go ahead and hit play. And so now we can see our path, our little slope. We've got our mountain range that stops us from seeing the edge of the world. Here's my little path that runs down here. Smooth path to go down and check the pond. Turn on my flashlight. Look at things, you know. And then the structure. So now that I have that part set up, let's go ahead and put this floor down. Cube. Holding V to snap. Snap to a corner. And then make this as big as I need it to. About to like here. And see, even as I'm dragging it, I don't have to move my camera because the projector shows me where that floor ended. You can tweak it if you need to, but I could do that. I could even continue this into the building and be like, no, that whole floor is that piece. Go ahead and change this to structure. Let's do black. There you go. So walls are white, floors are black for me. Okay. Put that in the right scene. So as I'm building stuff in the student scene, I'm going to make sure to put them under my level geo node because that's where I want all of my building stuff to go. You can organize that down further if you want to and be like, this is the outdoor area, this is, you know, floor 1, floor 2, etc. Up to you. Player size, I'm going to move out of the way. I don't really want that right now. These stairs, though. So the stairs on this map are a little quickly drawn, let's say. So let's make stairs that work from here. The character already handles walking on things a little rough, so we have to make sure that our collision is created in a way that benefits that character. So down here on where the stairs are, I'm going to go ahead and do let's set this as active real quick, make sure it generates in here. I'm going to go ahead and create the ugly version of the stairs. And then show you the functional way of building the exact same stairs. So they're going to be like very huge, scaled like monsters. Okay. Pull this down to here. So here's going to be a step. Let's make this the lowest possible step first. Okay. And drag it across. And I'm going to move this so it's over here. And then drag it so it fits this whole area. So there's my first step. So LVD, structure, B. Okay, that's my first step. I'm going to duplicate this. going to scale it so it's missing one of these steps. Then I'm going to move it to the end. Hold V, snap it up to the top. There's my second step. I can duplicate it. Scale it so I'm missing one of these steps. Snap. Duplicate it. Move it up. Oh, the tediousness. And snap. So there's my ramp. So if I play this, these are the current steps, and we'll see what they do. Okay, so these steps kind of hop, and then that last one hops. A lot of steps I've seen are like the height that is chosen, or you have to pretty much jump up each step. They're just monster steps. So instead of making a bunch of teeny stairs, what you can do is change the collision for the steps into a ramp instead. So like the character can easily run up the stairs, but it looks like an actual set of stairs. So I'm going to go ahead and add a level blocking mesh wedge. And then this wedge is going to be snapped, holding V to the front here. I'm going to move it a little further so we can give our player something to run up on. Scale it across, and then scale it back. So there is a ramp. This ramp we can change the height if we need to, or have it start sooner. Go over here-ish. So that as the player runs up these stairs, it looks like everything just magically works. But in fact, it was a big trick all along. And a lot of what you do in this game is going to be finding ways to make it look correct, but it's not actually working the way it's supposed to. That's games in general. You're lying to the player. There's nothing happening on our screens right now. We're staring at a big blank screen, but it looks amazing because of all the things that are happening underneath it all. So this wedge, I'm going to, it has a mesh collider on it. There's an error you're going to see constantly when you add these things if you're using mesh colliders. It says that it no longer supports a non-convex mesh collider. There's a checkbox for it. I wish they would just check the box, but the box is not checked. Check that box. Non-convex. There you go. Okay, so I've got steps and I've got a wedge. I'm going to make an empty game object real quick. I'm going to call this stairs with capitals apparently. Stairs. There we go. So this stairs object will be a container for these steps. Wedge goes under stairs, and these cubes go under stairs. Okay? These cubes, I don't want to use their collision anymore, so I'm unchecking the box collider. Now they're there, but the collision is the wedge. The wedge, I don't want to see, so I'm going to uncheck mesh renderer. Now I have a invisible collider that I use instead. And these stairs I can move wherever I want. Hit play. I run out to these steps. Steps look like rickety old steps, but I can actually climb them with ease. Ooh. Magic. So if you notice in a lot of lower poly games, like the first couple areas in World of Warcraft and things like that, steps are just a ramp with a texture of steps on them. But we can fake it by putting in collision that is going to resolve properly, however, still make it look like the thing we wanted to. We could have really intricate stairs that we've modeled out and everything, but functionality-wise, everything works how we want to because it's a ramp. Okay, so that's steps. Now that it's its own object too, if I decided that instead of having a front door here, I wanted like stairs to the roof, I could take this object and duplicate it, and then put another set of stairs up here. But then we can scale this entire thing up and have like this ridiculous ramp with giant steps. That one doesn't look as good, but I'll leave it here just so we can see it. So as the magic continues to happen. So those giant steps in the back also use a ramp, but now I can run up this one and then immediately run up this one.
Right.
Okay. So this one I don't want to use, but that's there. So I've got some steps, I got a floor, I've got some walls, fence walls. I'm going to go ahead and make one of these chairs, and then I think we'll be good for block out stuff. So cube, this cube is going to be the start of my chair. My chairs are here on the map. If I set, let's go, because it's using the black material. If I line this up, I can create something that pretty much looks like the thing that's on here, the icon. So we can rotate it if we need to. I'm not actually going to rotate this one right away. What I'm going to do is, because the chair is rotated, I'm going to build the chair first and then rotate it into position. So there's like a armrest. Let's make a where your butt's going to go. A little seat. Make the seat down. Okay. And I can go back and check to see if it's actually the right size later. Duplicate that. When I say block out, I do mean block out. Like you can be very simple with the actual shape of the object as long as it conveys what you need it to. Because we're not really doing this to make a beautiful level. We're doing this to make a functional level. So there's my chair. This chair is going to be static. It's not going to move anywhere. So I'm going to make an empty game object. This is going to be the container for my chair. I'm going to take this. I'm going to hold V to snap it here. This pivot point is my chair's pivot point. So I'm going to call this chair. This chair object, I'm going to put in the center of this. Because if I move this object, I want it to move by this center point. Okay? So I'm going to drag these two pieces under chair. I'm going to drag this one up here. Make sure all these are in here. All these pieces. All these should be under chair. That's all chair. Okay? So under chair, all these objects, this is going to be a static chair. So I'm going to change these from utility grid mat to under materials, static. Also, just as a heads up, when you go into your team-based class, if you have a bunch of objects that don't move, please click static up here in the upper right-hand corner. What this does is Unity no longer considers it a moving transform, and that data is no longer necessary. So it's just an object that sits still forever. So I'm going to click static. Actually, I'll click static on the main object here. Yes. And that means that it's no longer going to process any of that stuff. It's going to make your game run faster. It'll properly use this for occlusion culling. So like if it's not in the view of the camera, it's not going to render it. So this is going to be my static chair that's stuck to the ground. I'm then going to duplicate this, and we're going to make a dynamic chair that we can pick up with the grab null and stuff. So I'm going to uncheck this. Yes, change children. The dynamic chair is going to be, it's the exact same object, but we're going to make sure that we know as the developers that this is dynamic. So this chair, go to all these, and I'm going to change LVD static to LVD dynamic. Now it's the bright orange color signifying that this will be able to be moved. However, my chair right now is built out of these cubes that are underneath it. I need this parent object to control the object. So if I use my grab null on this, I want it to be picked up from the center of this, not from a corner. So I'm going to change dynamic chair to fizz. I'm going to add to it a rigid body, but I must also add a collider. Otherwise, this object will fall through the floor. This collider is where the player would sit, so I'm going to edit this and just make it a little smaller. So it'll pick it up from this position, but I can still jump on it if I want to. So that's the collider for that chair. Our 2 chairs, save that, and let's give that a test. Cool. So I'm going to run back over into the area. There's our 2 pieces of IKEA furniture. Run up the stairs. Okay, so here's dynamic chair, where I can push it, I can lift it, rotate it around, different keys. Okay, and we can drop it back down. I also have static chair, which I can't move at all. Exact same model, but I've put the other material on it to signify this doesn't move, but it's still a prop. But now I have a movable prop, a non-movable prop. I've got floors, I've got fences, I've got a terrain, all that stuff. This is essentially the blocking out of your project. So you wouldn't stop here. You would continue building it. You would add the walls, you would add the ceiling, you would add other props. All of those things that you're going to be building towards your first submission for milestone 1, and then continuing forward when you move to milestone 2 and 3. So when you're building milestone 1, you finish the block out of your entire level. This is just a demonstration of how to start blocking things out. So I hope that was very insightful for that stuff. Please check out the rest of our videos for more information on other things. But that was the map projector demo, so thanks for watching.